Well, it's September 14th. We're in Chicago, and we're sitting with Kurt Stalker. Thank you for spending some time with us for the second time. We had technological problems with the first interview. Why don't we start off talking about your early career? You graduated from Marietta College with a business degree, and tell us about that career path that you took that eventually landed you where you are right now.
The good news is I got into public relations late. Had I gotten in early, I would have failed miserably. Okay. I came out of Marietta College with a degree in petroleum engineering and business. The reason I quickly grabbed a business degree because I did not want to go to Saudi Arabia. Took a job with General Telephone for a short period of time as a statistician, ended up with Allstate Insurance Company in personnel. Then personnel, now human relations. Fought unions in labor relations for Allstate and Sears for many years. Ran employee benefits, did all of the top things you do in personnel. And then the company was hit in the face with redlining, which is the big issue of the time, where banks and insurance companies were accused of drawing red lines around urban areas and not insuring or loaning money in low-income areas. In fact, Gail Sincata, who eventually got some fame in bringing some real good legislation to the whole issue of Community Reinvestment Act, she and about 30 other residents of South Side of Chicago ended up in the chairman's office at Allstate, and the PR department didn't have a clue. They had a lot of very clever, skilled ex-journalists who didn't know what to do with it. And being a gunslinger coming out of labor relations, I was co-opted to handle this issue. And I spent a year in the basement of churches all over the United States talking to communities and community organizers who have obviously gotten somewhat popularized lately, trying to deal with the issue. And we did. We ended up doing a very good conference with the entire community organizing body and Allstate Insurance Company, and sort of led the issue out of the dark. And it was, so I got into it sort of the back door. Had I got into it early, as they say, I would have failed, because I failed probably every English course I ever took. Can't even spell the word grammar. Fortunately, I had a lot of people around me who could.
Now, you have had some experience in the classroom with some public relations students. In the business college or in
the graduate school?
In the graduate school, okay. How are those students, are they prepared to make these difficult ethical decisions that they're going to be faced with? Or do they have the tools that they need to handle different situations? You taught at the graduate level, is that correct? No undergrad?
Well, I've done some undergrad as well.
Okay.
Not everybody should come into public relations. First off, many people don't really understand what we do, and they don't understand the ethics around it. And I think the ethics are a basic part of it. You know, everyone probably in the Arthur Page Society that has been very successful at one time or another had to bet their job. They've had to tell somebody no. They've had to tell somebody that's the wrong thing to do. And that somebody normally is a fairly important person in the organization, and they know they're putting their job on the line when they do it. And sometimes they've been fired for the right reasons, and they've gone on and been successes someplace else. So, number one, if you're coming into this profession, I think students have to understand it's a risky profession in a lot of ways. One, it's a very relationship profession. You know, you end up with a very tight relationship with the CEO and others, and we see in our profession the CEO leaves, the PR person leaves. I mean, and the second thing, it's risky because you have to tell people that you have to tell truth to power, and that's not always easy, and it's generally not easy when you have a mortgage to pay. So I think number one, I think the profession, the academics are not necessarily explaining what we do in the context of where you're going to end up in the profession, not where you start in it. I've had two experiences. Undergrad, I just visited my old college, and I sat down with the professors and talked to a lot of the students. And one of the questions I asked the professors is, are you teaching financial relations to your PR students? And she said, well, no. And I said, well, then you're not preparing them well. If they can't read a balance sheet, if they don't know how that company makes money, they can't do their job. I got a nice email from her some weeks later saying I've made a deal with the business professors, and we're doing some cross-training. So I think, number one, I think undergrad, I'm not sure we're preparing, in many places, we're preparing students for what's happening today in our business. I'm not sure it's grown as quickly as the profession has. Graduate, which I taught at Northwestern, we generally had students who had worked for 2 or 3 years in the profession before they came in. So they understood what was necessary. They had seen really good people at work, and what they needed was more knowledge. They needed an experience transfer, if you will, and which is what I was able to do. I mean, doing this for 40, 50 years, you make some mistakes, you do some right things, and if you understand which one was right and which one was wrong, you can tell somebody else not to make the same one. But I think the issue from an education standpoint is at the undergraduate level. I'm not sure it's keeping up with the profession.